Hello and welcome to this tutorial. Today I'm going to be going over a underappreciated modeling technique called lathing. Now for those of you who haven't heard of lathing, well, it's not surprising actually. It's a very obscure way of modeling, but it's actually really great and quick at modeling things such as ceramics and other symmetrical curves. A program that actually extensively uses lathing is one called Artform Curvy 3D. You may have heard of it. It's on Steam and on its own site, but it uses lathing in a incredibly interesting way. Not in a way that we're going to be really using it today in Blender, but it actually has lathing curves that are able to control the mesh from different axes, which is actually a really interesting concept of modeling. And I have tried it out, and it is very interesting. I wouldn't say it's something that a lot of us Blender users would find comfortable to use, but I do find it interesting, especially for modeling organic shapes. But going back to the tutorial at hand, lathing in Blender. So what is it good for? Well, as I said before, it's great for ceramics and bowls and vases and just getting a really good head start on something that may take a little while longer to model out manually with, let's say, box modeling. So to get started with lathing is actually quite simple. All that we actually need is a curve. So to add a curve, we're just going to press Shift A in our empty scene, drop down to the curve, and select any curve that you want. I'm going to start off with a Bezier curve. Okay, and I have my curve in here now. So now I'm just going to go into edit mode and rotate that along the Z-axis, and then I'm going to rotate it again on the X-axis. Excellent. Now I'm going to press G and just drag it out on the X, and then I'm going to come over here to our modifiers tab. You can find that at the wrench sort of icon on the side here, and I'm going to come down to here, the screw modifier, and apply it. And as you can see, it's generated a really nice mesh for us that screws around the axis. Well, not the axis, the point, the origin point of our object. And if we can change the angle here, you'll see that it changes how much of this is actually being generated. So for our purposes, that we want to set this to 360 degrees, and we can change the steps to increase the quality. But for now, let's just keep it at 16 while we're editing. So if we grab these points, we're actually able to manipulate this lathe. And this is a really great way of creating ceramics or other materials or objects that are similar in design, such as vases. So we can just extrude this out by pressing E, and we've already got a actually really interesting shape for a vase. And you probably want to add a base of some description, so I'm just going to rotate that out and then press G, X, and then drag it out just to give it a bit of a base. Then I'm just going to take this control point here and drag it in to kind of thin out that stand. And we're already within what? A couple of seconds, we've already got a incredibly intuitive and fast design of some sort of vase. And this would be great for prototyping, especially if you're in the independent game making industry. If you want to prototype, let's say, a hallway of vases, you can easily do it in like a couple of seconds here. So lathing is just a really great technique for this type of modeling. We can create like a cup now. And it's just so intuitive. I'm going to delete this vertex. There we go. Now I've got like a goblet. So that's great. So in order to actually make this a mesh, what we're actually going to do is we're going to transform the curve into a mesh. So I'm going to press Alt-C and convert to mesh from curve, or meta surface or text. But there we go. I pressed that and it should have applied our modifier. And we have a mesh, and done. Got our little goblet. Now, we probably want to fill this in here. So one thing that I can do is I could probably just, select all these vertices by holding Alt and selecting between them, and then just filling them by pressing F. A very quick and easy way of doing it, but not a recommended way if it's for a production. And then we have a filled in cup. But if we wanted to give this a bit of depth, we would add another modifier, such as the solidify modifier, and increase the thickness of it here. Now this is going to create some really funky effects here because of the way we've modeled this. So a way to get around that would probably just select all of these vertices here, go down to our object data, and I'm just going to invert it by pressing Ctrl I, create a new vertex group. I'm going to call this Lathe. No, we're going to call this solidify. Spelled wrong. I'll just call it solid because I can't spell at the moment. Solid, and then I'm going to assign these vertices to a weight of 1. And then press Ctrl I, bring down the weight value to about 0, and assign. Then we're going to go back up to our modifiers and set our vertex group here. And that should get rid of that error there, but also keep our nice solidify operation going. And then I probably want to, because I'm using smooth shading, I'm probably going to want to add an edge split modifier like so. Looking good. And there we have it. We have our goblet already modeled, really quick. Didn't take what? A couple of minutes. So you may have noticed that the tutorials as of late have really been a lot more fast and more, I don't know, I just sit down and I talk with you and I talk about what we're doing, and it's a lot more casual. And the reason for this is before, my tutorials would take way too long to make, and the time investment that I would put into them was not justifiable anymore. It would sometimes take me 8 hours, even longer sometimes, to create a tutorial, and that just, it's not justifiable for me to expend that much time on these sort of projects, on these tutorials. Granted, that may reduce the quality of the tutorials, and for that reason I would like to apologize. I hope that it doesn't detract from them too much. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that this lathing technique helps you out. I know that it has its uses, and it does also have its negatives. It's rather limited in what it's able to create, but I hope that you're able to take something away from this. If you would like a little bit more detail or watch some of my older tutorials in more detail, you can head over to my site at foulsonfantasy.com, as it should have been. So I'll just go to tutorials. And as you can see, it shows our latest tutorial, the compositing trick in Legend of with our semi-transparency. And you're able to see recent tutorials, then come down here and you're able to break them up into Blender tutorials, ZBrush tutorials, and World Machine tutorials, and then go to the respective pages of each tutorials that you're interested in. Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video or found it informative in any way, please consider hitting that like button and send me a comment if you don't understand anything or would like a question on anything to do with Blender or other software. I would be more than happy to help if I can. Also, if you would like to see more content like this, hit that subscribe and bell button to get notified on any new releases. So thank you so much for watching. This is Hayden Foulson from Fouls on Fantasy, signing off.